I'm sitting here today with a person who has scaled AI across 6 continents, 27 countries, and 18 languages. From Uttarakhand to IIT, from working at Visa to becoming a Forbes 30 under 30 and building and exiting an AI startup. Himanshu, it's honor to have you here. Welcome to Documenting Real Journeys with Nisarga.
Thank you so much, Nisarga. Really looking forward to it.
Okay. So, most of them know you, but the people who don't know you, how would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I always introduce myself as someone who is curious and who is a deep thinker, and I typically introduce myself as someone who is working at the forefront of the AI technology and working specifically in the CPG industry. Of course, the idea is that I also talk about my experience, a decade-long experience that I have in AI. But beyond that, also I talk about my interests, which are reading books, which are being into fitness and all that.
Okay, great. So, starting with the first question, in early days of AI Palette, how did you solve the cold start problem? Like, how did you predict trends for categories that don't even exist yet?
Great. So for this, let me tell you a little secret about the food industry, and there are couple of very interesting factors which influence how the food trends flow from one country to another or one geography to another, which are specifically the cross category influence and cross geography influence. Now let me elaborate a bit more on them. So what I mean by a cross geography is, for example, there are some categories which influence another category. A very simple example is a thing which becomes very popular in bakery can influence what can become big in confectionery. Similarly, there's a lot of influence that happens from alcoholic beverage that happens down to the beverage as a whole, right? So there's a lot of cross category collaboration that happens, and this is one way that you can predict what is going to happen in the other category if you know what's already dominant in one category. So that's one. The second thing that we look at is the cross geography influence, and this is very important for the Asia as a market, because what happens in Asia is a lot of trends start from Japan and South Korea, and then they trickle down to Indonesia, Thailand, and then from there they come down to Singapore, Malaysia, and so on and so forth. So by understanding what is trending in Korea and Japan, you can try to predict what is going to happen tomorrow in Singapore and Indonesia and Malaysia markets. So that's another way, which is the cross geography influence. And thanks to now all the Netflix influence or the K-pop influence and the culture and the globalization that has happened, it has become even more predominant. So today you can see the Korean trends are not popular only in the Southeast Asia, but even in India, for example, right? You would have seen how K-pop is making its way into the culture as a whole. How, for example, Nestle, they launched their Korean barbecue noodles in the market, right? Again, catering to the audience which was already influenced with the Korean culture. So that's so these are the couple of ways in which we identify the trends, the cross geography and the cross category, even if there is no existing trend in a particular category today.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
So coming to the second question, in world of black box AI, how do you make your models explainable enough for a CEO to confidently invest millions based on your AI recommendation?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things that we need to think about when it comes to the AI model is the explainability, because at the end of the day, whatever output that you give to the customers, they are making millions of dollars of investment because of that particular insights that you are providing. So how do you ensure that they trust the data and the insights? So in order to do that, what we provide on our platform is the explainability, basically letting them understand why we are predicting a certain trend or why are we saying this particular trend is matured. Now we do that using multiple statistical metrics. For example, we talk about what is the growth rate, how this particular trend has been growing year over year. Similarly, we'll talk about the depth or the penetration of that particular trend, how popular it is, let's say, on a particular social media channel. Or we also talk about how many recipes are there in the market, how many e-commerce products are there in the market, and then we also give them evidence related to the same. So we give them sample products, we also give them sample posts which are coming in from the social media. So once they go through that, then they gain confidence that this is not something which is having no backing, but rather this is actually having the backing of those evidences, and then it becomes a question of gaining the customer trust and the confidence.
Okay, that's great. So coming to the third question, you evolved from generative AI to agentic AI. What's the real difference in your system, AI Palette? And is the AI now behaving more like an employee making decisions rather than just generating suggestions?
Yeah, so generative AI, I would if I were to really look at it, right, it would be equivalent to a smart intern.
Okay.
While if you look at agentic AI systems, they are more equivalent to a junior analyst. And now they are even becoming so powerful that you can start thinking of them as a senior analyst or senior specialist. Now, if I were to really elaborate on this, now when I say generative AI is more of a smart intern, because you give it a problem and then it will give you the response, right? But it does not have the autonomous way or a nature in which it will go out and solve the things beyond what you tell it to. However, in case of agentic AI, you give it a goal and the agent is going to break down that goal into multi-steps and then it will autonomously do that, right? So the end-to-end journey becomes more possible in agentic AI compared to a generative AI. Generative AI becomes more like a step. For example, if I were to talk about a use case, on generative AI, I could go and ask to generate a packaging design for Coca-Cola for the occasion of Diwali, right? And then it is going to generate a very nice packaging. But in case of agentic AI, I could ask the agent, which is Arya in our case, that tell me the top trends which are there in the Indian beverage market and create a product concept out of it, and then also tell me which is the product which is going to work best. So I give it this statement and then it will automatically figure out what trends to pick and then what are the kind of generations concept that it needs to do. All of this it is going to do by creating a plan and going through that end-to-end journey without being told explicitly that the agent needs to do so and so, right? So that's the biggest differentiator, that it starts acting at a higher level compared to the generative AI as a capability. And that's the reason why you see there is so much of information and there is so much of noise being created around the agentic AI, because they are very autonomous and you give them a goal and they will execute on that goal.
What do you mean by product concept, like exactly?
Yeah, so the product concept, you can think of it in a way, it's a product idea that you are trying to visualize in a way, right, before actually launching it to the market.
Okay.
So what that means is you are looking at a packaging design of the product, you are looking at the description of the product, what are the claims of the product and what is the target audience and persona for which you want that product to be catered to. For example, if I talk about a product concept, right, matcha Coca-Cola, it could be a product concept, because today, for example, it does not exist in the India market, and then I would have the different claims around it and also the target persona on which I want to target it, and similarly I could have the different descriptions of the product as well. Along with that, I could also visualize how the packaging is going to look like for the Coca-Cola. So all of that is a product concept, the text and the description along with the image.
Okay. So for the younger generation who want to start with agentic AI, क्या उन्हें start करना चाहिए courses के साथ या with Gemini AI से पूछ के start करना चाहिए कि कैसे start करना चाहिए?
Yeah, so I think it all depends on, firstly, what is the level that you want to get to. Firstly, what is the kind of role that you are into, right? Because at the end of the day, the information that you need to become better or you need to gain depends on specifically on the kind of role that you want to work on, right? Yeah. If you are into a software engineer, obviously you will need to use the agentic systems that are out there for coding purposes, and that's where the Claude Code, the Cursor, all of these systems and the tools comes into the picture. Similarly, if I talk about, let's say, if you are a product manager or a designer, then you need to look at the tools like Google Stitch, which help you in generating the designs and all of that. Similarly, if you are in HR team, then maybe you need to use ChatGPT and Gemini more, because you need to generate some collaterals and whatnot, right? So I think it totally depends on firstly the type of industry that you want to go into and also the kind of role that you want to do. But assuming that, because I'm assuming the majority of your audience is going to be around engineering and more focused on tech as an industry, then I think the best way will be to start focusing on using the agentic AI coding tools, because that's the easiest way to get started. And today Anthropic itself provides you detailed tutorials. You don't need to go for any external tutorials. You can just go to Claude official website and they provide you the Claude Code official tutorials that you can go through and start gaining hands-on experience. So while going through a tutorial is fine, you should also subscribe for the tool, and in some cases I think there are also some student discounts which are there. Or if you're working in an organization, then you can get the credits from your company. So once you do that, then you can actually start experimenting with the tool. I would always say this: start with something small, right? Automate maybe, or build a small feature or a very small automation firstly to grasp the understanding, and then slowly move on to the complex things.
Okay. So like startups, अगर किसी कोई start कर रहा है startup, तो let us assume वो एक application build करना चाहता है Android या mobile application and his coding like complete application वो build कर रहा है Claude के code पे depend होके. What if अगर कुछ key mismatch हो गया या कुछ errors आ गए या bugs आ गया and like complete application will stop working. Is this the right way to do it, or you should be like, you know, write the code and understand what is there in that?
Yeah. So see, first things first, the person using an AI tool should at least have a ground understanding of the system design and the code, right? That knowledge and skill should not be compromised.
Correct.
They should definitely understand firstly what they are trying to build, and even though they are using a tool to generate code, that does not mean that they don't need to understand the code, because at the end of the day, like you rightly mentioned, these tools do hallucinate and they are going to give you the bugs which you only will have to solve. Correct. Right? But I think the biggest advantage that I see the 10x developers compared to the X developers is that they really understand the way in which you provide the prompt, right? They understand the art of the prompting and they are able to provide their requirements very clearly and in such a way that the number of bugs are minimized, as opposed to someone who provides a very vague statement but then does not describe more details around the requirement. And I think that's a recipe for disaster. If you are not expanding your requirements very diligently and very properly, then Claude is going to give you very generic code which will be prone to more bugs. So I think the first thing for the developer, for the serious developer, should be trying to understand the prompting and also the way in which you give context, right? So that's first. Secondly, I would say they cannot get away from debugging. You will still have to debug after every context that you have provided. So you have to understand the code and the business impact that you are trying to create, right? So that skill still you need to do and learn. But of course, the way or the time in which you could build a tool, that has come down significantly. So let's say in the past, you would maybe take months or weeks to develop something, that has come down significantly to maybe days or week for that matter.
True. So one is prompt engineering, second one is one should understand the code, what's happening there, and then give the prompt, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So coming to the next question, your platform works across 18 languages, right?
Yeah.
And multiple markets. How do you teach AI cultural norms? For example, how does it understand that spicy in India versus Mexico? Means completely different things.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very interesting question, and I think it all boils down to how do you essentially fine-tune the models, right? And I'll tell you, there are a couple of learnings that we have had, also based on how our competitors took their approach, right? So I think the first learning was that you always have to train the AI model in the native data set. Now what I mean by that is, if I'm building a Thai language model or a Mexican language model, then I should be training in the native languages of these countries and the native data set, which means I should be looking at Thai as a language, I should be looking at Mexican as a language, and not doing the opposite. A lot of the people or the companies I have seen is they would translate the data in English and then they would train their model. But when they do that, they are already losing the meaning in translation.
Okay,
right?
Can you come again?
Yeah, so what I mean is they should be using the local data sets in the native language for training the model.
Okay.
So if you are building a Thai model, you have to use, for example, if you are building a model for Thailand, you have to build a model for Thai language and not just translate the Thai language into English and then use it for Thailand.
Okay.
Right? So it's about using the underlying data set which are in the native language, because a lot of nuances are there in the language, in the way they are written, right? For example, a very simple example is even in India, right? You have so many different languages.
Correct.
And if I translate everything, let's say Kannada to English, Tamil to English, Telugu to English, and then use for training or building a model for India, that will not work. The model for India should be specifically trained on the Kannadiga, it should be trained on Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, all of these languages, because then only it will be able to understand nitty-gritty details. So that's one very important point. Then the second important point is humans, right? At the end of the day, see, AI is going to give you output, but then you can't always rely on that output. You need to have a feedback loop which gives the feedback and keeps on improving the model. Correct. Right? And that's where the humans comes into the picture, because they are able to understand what is the output and what are the mistakes that a model is making, and they are able to provide that context to the model. So in our case, for example, we had a domain team the domain team, they understand what the food and beverage domain looks like.
Okay.
So whenever a AI model that has been trained on a food and beverage data set, if it gives some error, let's say for example it is not able to understand the spiciness correctly, then they would provide that feedback as a loop, right? And ultimately it would go back to the model, and then it would understand, okay, this is the mistake that I made, and then going forward the model will also become smarter and better in terms of understanding those patterns and not repeat the mistakes. So I think having a human in the loop again is very, very important. You cannot completely outsource everything to the models. So these are the two ways in which we have tackled it. The first is having a human in the loop, and second is training it on the local language data sets.
Okay. So it's not like that completely AI can handle all the stuff? Okay. So coming to the next question. CPG companies usually take 1 to 2 years to launch products, right? What exactly does your AI replace or compress in the pipeline to bring it down to weeks or days?
Yeah. So right now, if you look at the new product development, right? Let's say, suppose I'm a product manager at Pepsi, and today I have an idea, right? Now it will take me 1 to 2 years for that idea to actually be represented in the market with a product, right? Finally, for the idea to be launched as a product in the market, and it has multiple steps. Right now, we at AI Palette are targeting the upstream part of it, or the first initial part of it, which is the product discovery, concept generation and concept screening. So I'll elaborate on all of these. So firstly, when I talk about the discovery, it means what exactly to launch, right? So today, if I'm a Pepsi brand manager, my obvious question will be, what is the next flavor that I should launch, or what next marketing campaign I should launch, right? So that's the discovery part. Now in the past, it would obviously take me weeks and months to get that information because I was dependent on a manual way. Now with AI, all of that can be reduced down to days and even weeks for that matter, right? So that's one part that we are crunching down. Okay. Then the second is the concept generation, which is where we use generative AI. So for example, in the past, if I had to visualize how the matcha Pepsi is going to look like, I would have a team of or an agency that would actually draw it out, right? There would be humans who would actually draw it out, and finally they would show that, okay, this is how it looks like. Now with generative AI, I can visualize it very quickly, right? So that's another way in which we are automating weeks what used to take to days or even hours for that matter. And then the screening part, let's say I have 100 ideas, but I obviously cannot launch 100 products in the market. So I need to know which are the top 3 ideas out of these 100. Now that also, it would have taken me weeks and months of preparation in the past. Using AI, I can get to that answer in days, right? So what we are really doing is we are essentially looking at this upstream part of the product life cycle, and then we are reducing something which used to take 3 to 6 months down to weeks and days. However, the rest of the part is still manual, but now compared to 1 to 2 years of the companies, they can actually launch a product in 6 to 12 months. And obviously we want to continue to crunch down on this particular time period.
Okay, that's great. So coming to the next question, when your system generates hundreds of product ideas, how does it decide which one are actually viable and what signals or metrics matter most during concept screening?
Yeah. So this is specifically a question for the Screen Winner, which is one of our products, and also for the Concept Genie. So firstly, for the Concept Genie, what we look at what people are talking about in the market and what are the products which are already out there, right? And based on that, it would generate the concept. However, that being said, it could generate anything, right? So how do you really sort of filter out that which is the one which is going to have better chances of success in the market? So we do it using a 2x2 graph, and we look at 2 metrics. One is originality and the second is relevance, right? So let me elaborate on these. So the first one, if I talk about the relevance, relevance looks at how relevant this particular product concept is for that category, right? Now, for example, assume that the product is, again taking the previous example, matcha Pepsi, right? Now, is matcha Pepsi popular enough? Are people talking about matcha as a whole? Are there already lot of customers who are searching for matcha in beverage format, right? So that's one way in which we try to understand what are the relevance of particular ingredients and themes which are there in a product.
So based on search engine.
Based on search engine and also the social media, right? Both of these data sets contribute to that. Then the second metric we look at is originality, where we look at how many products are already there in the market related to this, or how closely they are similar to this. So let's say if there is nothing similar to matcha, cola, right? Then it could be a completely new product, and obviously it will have higher originality score compared to, let's say, something which is very common, maybe like a orange soda, right? Now that orange or mango are very popular flavors in the summer months, right? So everyone would have some product or the other, and the market will be very crowded also. So by you looking at originality and relevance, you can figure out and start prioritizing. So anything which is having high originality and high relevance, which means that there is huge demand because users are talking about it, and there is no product in the market which is catering to that demand, it means that there is a white space opportunity. So that's the one way in which we do the filtering. So there is a quadrant that we create out of it, and then we look at anything which is falling in the high originality and high relevance is going to have higher chances of success in the market. So that's the way in which we do the filtering out of the 100 concepts that initially come to the screen winner.
Okay, great. So coming to the next question. Today, with tools like ChatGPT becoming mainstream, is the real moat in AI companies still the model, or is it like data you have built over years?
Yeah, so I would say, see, data, the model has never been a moat, right? I mean, if you talk about us, right, we started using you can say, grandfather of LLM, which was BERT. So BERT was one of those models which was launched in 2018 by Google, right? And it is one of the, you can say, genesis of LLMs in a way.
So ChatGPT is not the first LLM model?
Yeah, so I mean, GPT is not the first LLM model. I mean, they were like, the BERT and some of these other models which were there. Obviously, with ChatGPT, it became more famous because ChatGPT provided an interface using which anyone could go and start interacting with the LLM, right? But the other model were more adopted in scientific community or more in the tech advanced community, right? So now so coming back, I think the idea is that models have always been there and models will keep on evolving. So model can never be your moat. If you say that I have a better model, then tomorrow you will be replaced by a new model from either OpenAI or Anthropic, right? Because they are spending billions of dollars in building that infrastructure of the model layer, right? So you cannot compete with them as a startup. So then the question comes, where is your moat, right? So obviously one of the moat areas is the data that you are building, but then data is not the only moat. You also have to build a application layer, a workflow layer, which is very specific to the industry that you are operating in. And that, for example, is what we are trying to do at CPG. Similarly, there are companies that are building it for finance, somebody is building it for construction as an industry, someone is doing it for manufacturing, right? So that is the workflow which is very, very specific, right? And that workflow and the data combined is the moat that is going to be there, because it's very difficult for ChatGPT to build everything for everything, right? It's not possible for them because they at the end of the day are a foundational layer company. So they will continue to work on the foundation, but then they will not get into every industry, right? Because they want to enable the companies to build on top of them, right? Because they are playing at that model layer. So my only advice to the founders who are watching this would be that focus on the data, the proprietariness of the data that you have, which is the data layer, and then focus on building that application layer which cannot be easily replicated, right? So start having taxonomies that are built out which are very specific to the domain that you are operating in. Start building certain workflows and features which are very specific to food, right? For example, in our case, it is very specific to food. So it's not easy for ChatGPT to build it or replace it. A very simple example would be that I can today tell you in Brazil beverage market what is the strength of pairing for strawberry and blueberry. If you ask the same question on ChatGPT, it will not be able to give you, or maybe it will give you, but it will give you a hallucinated answer because it has not built that application layer, that domain layer, which we have built out, right? So I think that's the way to think about for the founders who are watching this.
Okay. So what do you mean by application layer here? Exactly?
Yeah. So when I say application layer, I mean a domain layer essentially, and the domain layer will be a workflow which is solving a part of your customer journey or a very specific areas that your customers are interested in. So for example,
rather than being in silos,
yes,
be specific about it.
Be very specific about it. So for example, let's say in case of F&B, right, or in case of food and beverage, the customers want to know, okay, what is the strength of pairing of the different ingredients, right? Now this is very specific knowledge, like a domain knowledge that you are trying to build. Similarly, if I talk about white space opportunity, right? This is very specific to food and beverage industry on how they evaluate it or how do they look at it.
Correct.
Similarly, there are things like flavor wheel, there are things like taxonomies that you are building out. A very simple example would be like, that you have themes, right? Where people talk about yoga, or they would talk about Pilates when consuming a particular juice or a drink, right? So that's one way in which they talk about. Similarly, they also talk about the place in which they are having, where they are having a particular drink or they are having a particular beverage, right? Similarly, they could talk about the ingredient in that particular product. So these are all very specific taxonomies which are related to the food and beverage. So if you are codifying it in your layer, in your application layer, then it becomes very difficult for someone who is working at an OpenAI to replicate it.
Correct.
Right? Unless they have access to that kind of information. Similarly, if you talk about in finance, right, like a fraud detection, it's very, very specific, right? How do you identify a fraud? Or let's say loan disbursement, right? How exactly that entire process works. So these are very specific to finance as an industry, and building a workflow around these or building data modules around this prevents you from from anyone copying you in a way, right? So
Correct.
That's the layer that I meant.
Okay. So coming to the next question, after being acquired by Global Data, how do you see the future of deep tech startups, and should founders aim to stay independent, or is it like acquisition is the natural end game for companies?
Yeah, I think it's a sort of a very personal question, yeah, right? So I think it all depends on how do you want your journey to be. At the end of the day, of course, a startup is like your baby, and you don't always want to give your baby away.
Exactly.
But if there is a great, you can say, grandparent that's there, right, who can add value to what you are already doing, then definitely you should
take it to next level.
Right, take it to the next level. So in case of, let's say, AI Palette, Global Data has access to 3,500 employees across the globe. They are in 20 plus industries, and they have Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 customers, right? Okay. So getting access to all of that distribution would have been very difficult for us to do at AI Palette alone. It would have taken us maybe 10 years
Correct.
to reach that level. Now with the help of Global Data, we can reach there in 3 years or even less.
Yeah.
So I think that is the difference which partnering up with a global player or with a larger distribution player unlocks. And that's the reason why you also see companies like OpenAI and also Anthropic acquiring a lot of the startups, because these startups also, they want to get associated to the large distribution which OpenAI users have, or which the Anthropic or the Cloud Code users have, right? So I think that's the reason why the acquisitions are also very frequent currently if you look at it, and there's a lot of consolidation that is anyway going to happen. Okay. Right, and that has started to see show up in the way how the industry is operating.
Okay, great. So coming to the last question,
Yeah.
you scaled a 50 plus member team. If
Yeah.
you are standing today in 2026 with all the new AI tools available, would you still build a large team, or could you achieve the same with 5 to 10 people?
Yeah. So definitely, I think a lot of things have changed in the world of AI, and I think yes, 5 years back, while building that kind of technology needed like that many members, today I think that is not the case. For example, today one single engineer can do the productivity of 10 engineers or maybe 5 engineers if he or she is well equipped enough with the AI tools and has a knowledge of the AI tools, right? So I think as long as someone is really great and AI native and they understand how these AI tools work, whether it is for coding or marketing or whatever purpose that they are using it for, then you don't need that many headcounts, because these agents, they become your virtual employees. Correct. Right? So even though you may have a 10-member team, like a human team, but then you will have 40 agents running alongside those humans.
Okay.
So it will still be a 50 team, but then there will be 40 agents which are running rather than 40 humans which are running. So that definitely is one of the shift that is starting to happen, and even we at AI Palette and Global Data are seeing this happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would be great if you share your journey. How did you start with AI Palette and how it's going now?
Yeah. So with AI Palette, we started back in 2018. Before, just to give a couple of context, before AI Palette, I was working as a senior software engineer at Visa, and I was again based out of Bangalore only. And I remember at that point of time, any AI conference that I used to go in Bangalore, it would not have any other startup apart from a fintech, right? There only used to be the AI startups operating in fintech, and I always used to wonder where are the other startups in the other industries, and that got me thinking that it's only a matter of time that AI is going to get adopted in each and every industry, right? So that was the way in which I started thinking about it, and in 2018 then I quit my job. I moved to Singapore, and then I met my co-founder there, and then we started the AI pilot. So initially again the idea wasn't very much there, right? We just wanted to build something in AI for the FMCG industry, but we did not know exactly what to build. Right? Then we started obviously discussing with the potential customers, and we started understanding what to build and which is the biggest pain point for the customers. And what we realized is identifying what next product to launch or identifying what next marketing campaign to launch is one of the big hair on fire problem for a product manager or a brand manager, because they are completely clueless, and at times they are also facing this heat because the failure rate in the industry is so high, right? 90% is the failure rate in the FMCG industry, and a lot of these products they are not able to succeed well, right? And also the time taken, right? It takes 1 to 2 years to launch a product, and by the time they realize that the product is launched in the market, the customers have already moved to something new, because the customers are also changing very, very fast in their preferences. Yes. So based on that, we identified that they need an AI system which is going to help them in predictive insights, so that they know what is going to happen tomorrow in advance, so that they can make their bets accordingly. And also how can they cut down this time period of 1 to 2 years down to weeks and days, right? So that is how the Foresight engine, which was the first product, started. And I still remember when we were reaching out for this particular product, right, we did not get a lot of interest from everyone, because at the end of the day nobody wanted to work with just two founders who did not have a big company, and they were very skeptical whether this is going to work or not. But I think we were lucky to find some early adopters and some customers who then started working with us and started giving us initial feedback. So based on that, we were able to refine a product, and we were able to iteratively build it. And then slowly over a period of time, the magic happened, right? So the magic was that once we started working with the customers in Asia, they referred us to the Europe customers. Then from Europe, we then expanded to USA. From USA, we expanded to Latin America. And at one point of time, we started working with customers across 6 different continents. Right, except Antarctica. So we would joke about it that we are everywhere in the world except Antarctica. And
I was about to ask this, why only 6 continents?
Yes, yeah. So I think the big thing, the big factor which played there was this land and expand, because once we were able to work with one customer in a geography, because the work was so good, because the tool was so good, they would refer us to someone who is there in the Europe team or someone in the US team. And that's how we expanded from one geography to another geography, one category to another category. And once all of that happened, then we were able to get to 27 different geographies. And even today, for example, we are working with some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies, some of the biggest food and beverage companies in the world. And also along the way, we expanded our product. So initially it was focused on food and beverage. Then we also started working on beauty and personal care, and that is one vertical that we added. Now we have also added baby food, we have added pet food, we have added nutraceuticals, because these are some of the emerging categories. Now today, we can see people who are paying more attention to their pets than their babies, right? True. Now that is the kind of trend which is starting to happen. And I think pet food is again becoming very big in USA as well as in India. So that's where we started providing the insights on what could be big there. Similarly, baby food also, because if you look at the companies like Mamaearth, they have literally became a unicorn and all that, because they started catering to an audience that was not catered before, right? Which is the baby care as a segment. And now we have also realized that working with the customers, they want to focus on this category as a whole, right? So that's where the baby care and the baby food started becoming one of our focus areas. Nutraceuticals again, because everyone wants to go towards the health as a wave, right? Everyone is becoming very health conscious, and nutraceuticals is becoming, if you look at the overall GLP-1 drugs and everything that's happening in the health industry, this is becoming very, very popular as a whole, right? So nutraceuticals is another one of the things that we saw was happening, and then we started implementing it. So these are the ways in which we have expanded our base and the coverage, whether it is the country expansion, moving from one country to 27 countries across 6 continents, or whether it is moving from one vertical to now 3 verticals. Again, the help from the global data has been quite immense, because we are able to expand to these categories very, very quickly. Okay. And now we also have plans to get into, maybe in the future, in fashion, right, or into the fintech and the other areas, right? Because there also you have the the trends being driven and whatnot. So at the end of the day, what we have built is a intelligence system which can be then plugged and played into any industry.
Okay. So here are the 2 OG questions that I ask every founder I meet.
Sure.
So are you ready, Himanshu? The first question is, what is that one advice you'd like to give to the people in their 20s who are starting their career?
Okay, got it. So I think there's this line in Bhagavad Gita, which is that, karam karte jao and phal ki chinta mat karo. And I would say that is one line which has stuck with me, very, very, has struck a chord with my heart, right? Okay. Which is that, see, there are always going to be these factors which are outside of your control. But what is in your control is that you have to work, right? You have to do your karam, whether it is, you want to learn AI, or if you want to, build something, or if you want to start your own thing, right? So you have to work on that, and then don't worry too much about the what is going to happen to the result or not, because result is not going to always be in your favor, because the odds are always against you, right? So you cannot control how the result is going to be, but what you can control is the hard work that you can put, or the intensity of the work that you are putting into. So I would say keep on doing the karam, and then phal is all going to take care of itself.
Sure. So the second question is, what is that one mistake people in their 20s should avoid?
One mistake that people should avoid. Okay. So I think one mistake that I have at least made is that I became too much in my comfort zone, right? And this actually started happening when I was at Visa, because again, it was a big MNC and I was getting a good salary, right? Definitely. And because of that, sometimes you become too much in your comfort zone, that why to start anything new, or why to even switch a company, right? I mean, this is paying me so well. I can take care of myself and the family, so why should I move out of this comfort space and do something which is very difficult, or something which is which I'm not even sure about. But I think what I have seen is the 20s are the best time for experimenting, right? So experiment the hell that you want, because the 30s and 40s are going to come with a lot of baggage, right? So when I say baggage, I mean a lot of responsibilities, whether it is in terms of family, or whether it is in terms of taking care of your parents and all that, because at the end of the day, those phases of the life are also going to be very, very important, and you will not get a lot of time to experiment then. So the best time to experiment is in the 20s. Go and pick up that hobby that you wanted to do. Go and apply for the job in a different country, right? So I would also suggest to explore the different cultures, and don't remain in the comfort zone of the culture that you are in, right? I think being in Singapore exposed me to so many different cultures that I think my horizon also broadened a lot, right? That would not have happened if I had only been in India, right? So these are the ways in which you can experiment around, whether it is applying for a job in a different country, picking up a different hobby, or even starting your own thing, right? Maybe it's your passion and you always want to try it. Go and try it out, right? Maybe try it for a year. If it doesn't work out, then you can always come back to the job, right?
People have this in mind ki what if 4 log judge karenge to kya kare, and they'll make fun of us, तो क्या करें?
Yeah, so I would say, see, अगर 4 लोगों के बारे में जो whatever they are thinking, right? If you start also worrying about it, then what those 4 लोग are going to do, right? So again, coming back that you don't need to worry what they are doing. I think it's all about कर्म करते जाओ, फल की चिंता मत करो, and वो 4 लोगों के भी चिंता मत करो, is what I would add on to it. Again, I mean, even for me, I have had, relatives who were not really on board with this idea of starting our own thing, right? And initially everyone was like, why did you quit your comfortable job? You were getting paid so well. Why did you quit it? And now, you're starting your own thing with no salary, no security, no future, guaranteed future, right? But I think I was always clear in my mind that I want to do something different. And I was very clear from day one that I will give this 1 year. Right? If this works out, then great. If this doesn't, then I will come back and see and evaluate my options, right? But I will at least give it a year and then go with full intensity into it. Fortunately, things worked out well. Right, and I think it went on to be a great journey, and I think it also changed me quite a lot, because had I been working only in a corporate career, maybe I would have earned more or less, but then the learning would have always been less. However, in a startup, I think the learning which I have had in 1 year would be equivalent to maybe 3 years of being in a corporate, right? Because you move very, very fast and you learn the things on the fly. So I think that has been the biggest differentiator for me, at least in terms of learning, that I've learned quite a lot. And I think even today, we keep on learning the AI and whatnot, and I think it's been a great experience for all of us, for me and the team, everyone included, and we keep on working, and making ourselves better.
Great. So Himanshu, this has been a masterclass. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to host you, and thank you for being so transparent and sharing meaningful insights. Thank you so much. And
Thank you so much for coming down and doing this. Really appreciate it. Hope this is useful to the audience.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I'm by the way very approachable on LinkedIn. So if in case any of the people who are watching this, they want to reach out for any doubt or any questions which are there, happy to address them. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Sure.
Great.
Himanshu.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.